behind that door mean? Now, I don't know what's behind. Well, I have opened every door in the park except for two when I worked there. There are new doors now, but there was the two wine lockers in Cut 33. I was actually searching for Walt Frozen, or to prove he's not frozen, whichever one you want to go for. But those were the only two doors I never opened when I was here at the park. Brian Summers here, who has also done some recording for the park and knows some things. So anybody that knows something that I might have missed, feel free to shout it out. My sponsor didn't show up, but his merchandise did. I have one hat and one book for the full report, Walt Disney World. So I haven't decided how I'm going to give them away, but I'm sure something will stand out as an outstanding event that somebody says to earn these fine gifts. If you didn't get your pin somewhere along the line, hit me up, I'll get you those. I started here because probably the most famous, what's behind that door is right up there, which was Walt's apartment. They now keep the light on at all times. When I worked here, they didn't. Now it's, the legend is, to remember him. So it's a new legend, in my opinion. But there is also the sliding pole back here. I recently saw Tony Baxter talking about how Walt used to slide down it, but they had to seal it off because people tried to shimmy up it. I've actually never seen the pole connection on the other side, so I'm not sure if it's legend or if it's true. But it's a fun story nonetheless. Basically, up in the apartment, if you've seen pictures of Lillian and Walt sitting, Lillian's sitting along that wall. There's a little bench seat that pulls out to make a bed, one on that side, and a little lamp, some chairs. The thing that most people don't know is right out there was a private lounge. I didn't even know it was here until I went up to the archives of the studio and I was looking for pictures, and there's Walt and Fran sitting out there behind you. You kind of see the trellis. I don't really see it much anymore. Also, when I worked here, if there were dignitaries here, the fire truck would be pulled out and the doors were closed, or the doors were closed. That usually meant somebody's upstairs, they just don't want the noise transmitting up. Now behind the big gates, once we used to have the lockers here, and then the lockers were moved down Main Street. But unlike Main Street at the Magic Kingdom, where you see the horses right here, the horses are actually walked under a little tunnel. It's not much of a tunnel, but under the train tracks, and all the way around to the stables in the back. But the trolleys are left here. Occasionally, you might see a Jungle Cruise boat on a boat trailer. They have winches that can take them out. On occasion, when Fantasmic first started and it was so crowded, when Fantasmic let out, you got to walk down the stinky, dirty hall, or actually you can see some trucks now. There's trash back there, and it was really not very good show, but it was the only way to get people out because Main Street was packed, and literally down that side you got to see the skanky, dirty stuff. Now, if you remember the Tahitian Terrace, which is now the Aladdin show, they had the waterfall, the girls came out and wiggled in front of it, and I think in Aladdin it turned into a lion. You can walk behind that and come straight down here. Brought to you by Imagineering My Way.
And there's the rest of the parade.
So I plan on this being interactive. I'll tell you what I feel like telling you. If you have a question of what's there or there or there, a lot of these places are very mundane, trash cans, smoking areas. I'll take you to the famous, this is where the princesses hang out and act like, well, not princesses. Where's that now? That was always fun. That's up in Fantasyland.
That is a
fantasy. Yes, it was a fantasy. And it came true. So, any questions while we're in this area? Now I heard Brian, if you want to mention anything about the rumors of the Opera House, upstairs right now is the PBX, a few little offices. Now, funny little story, when they were doing a rehab, where Walt's offices were, they had halon fire suppression, because everything in there was original and valuable. So you can't have water ruining it. We had a standby up top when they were working, and anytime there's a weld or anything going on, there's a fireman by him. The fireman came running to security, which is just behind there, with his radio in his hand saying, "Fire! Fire!" Radio would have got you a little quicker action, and they're trying not to ruin the equipment. It started a little fire. It was comical to us who were in the profession at the time, but couldn't really ever quite figure that out. Have you guys ever heard the story on Ridgway's book about the little room Marty Sklar used to work in and Walt walked in behind him? I believe, I'm not 100% positive, over there at the far end, where now I think they use it for the guide girls. The newspaper was in that last piece of City Hall. And when I was here, there's nothing really in it. The tell you another funny story. I got a call. I was undercover, dressed not unlike Florian was there, sitting in the in-between, which is behind the Plaza Inn, listening to my radio, which I don't usually listen to when you're undercover. You just wait for a call. Someone was running, or what we call rabbiting, from a shoplifting thing. They ran through that little push gate over there and up into the Jungle Cruise berm. So I come tearing across, I go through there, running up in the berm, and it's about this high. They got down to the water and realized they had no place to go. So they turned around, and I come running down, and I forget how high I am, and literally you're doing one of these leaping in the airs off the end. We ended up in the back of the City Hall, downstairs where the lockers are for the red plaid girls. And we're literally doing the wing breastski with them on the wall because one of the guys yelled knife. So you're not taking your chances. It ended up being a little kid knife. The guy could stab you. We're just slamming the guy into the wall. It's fun. So the cops came. Yeah, behind the scenes. Not on stage. So those are all the fun little stories. So, any other questions while we're here? We'll move on down the street. I plan on doing a lot of walking. I really was going to take us by Fast Pass locations to make sure we got to the other meets on time, but now we don't have to necessarily hit those places.
Do you know the famous clock story?
No.
As we mentioned, the PBX, so when you call Disneyland, the operator was actually on the second floor of the bank. And in the old days, there was a classic story that one of the lead engineers kept getting a call saying that the time on the Main Street station was incorrect. People would come in the park and say that the clock's wrong. So he'd go over to the clock, check it, and he'd actually get on his phone and call over to the PBX bank. There it is. Okay, I can see it. He would get on the phone, call over to the PBX and ask for the official Disneyland time, and the operator would tell him, and he'd look at the clock and it would be fine. So he'd come back down from the ladder and get on with his business. Another call would come in. The clock's wrong. He'd climb up there, look at the clock, call the PBX. What's the official time? She said blah, 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 blah. He looked at the clock. It was fine. About the third or fourth time, he finally decided to actually walk over to the PBX office and walk over to her and say, what's the official time for Disneyland? She pulled the curtain back and looked out the window to the clock and told him what time it was.
Yeah, good story. I also heard that Diana, your brother's sister, would like to go over there and scare the people from the jungle. It's not that close, but maybe if Fort grew up, possible. Now over behind those gates, of course, that's where they stage the parade. When the parade comes down this way, stages there, comes back out. Security's in that building back there. Dick Dudis' office used to be in that building you can see back there. That's also the diorama where the dinosaurs are, which was directly behind the security office. So that's basically that credit union offices at one time. Your ATMs are back there. All your cast member crap is back there. That was also supposed to be the Hollywood land that the Roger Rabbit ride was, and it was all going to be back there. That's also where Edison Square was going to be. That never happened. So a lot of possibilities just never happened. All right, well let's.
Hey Mike, I got a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so the floats go back there after the first parade. So, but then you have to come around, right, and get readjusted so that the first float is the first float out. So the second parade. So there must be enough room.
Yes, there's a lot of room back there, and they actually stage it as they go in, and there's a route for them to park, so they're all back in order. Yeah, it's actually it's hard to imagine, but there's a lot of room back there.
It seems really small.
Yeah, and there's a well, it used to be the cast center right in the middle of it. And then, back to Space Mountain's right there. But it's enough room to get all the floats in. There are a few things like the animals. If there's an animal, they've got to take them back out the route and then back again on the back way on the other side because they don't leave the animals out there. We've had animals in parades.
Yeah. Where does that to get an animal off? How can they get out of that?
There's an area we used to call Harbor House, and it goes underneath that building. Basically, when you're riding the train between the diorama or Grand Canyon and the dinosaurs, you go over a little bridge. You just don't know you're going over a bridge. That's where we go. All right, so if anybody didn't get a pen, I've got pens. Let's head down Main Street.
Where are we heading next?
I'll go down to the end of Main Street.